So let's talk about HELOCs first. Yeah. And you actually sent me this one. This is from CNBC. So does a HELOC for debt consolidation make sense now? And this is what people need to know. So basically, there's a good side to this conversation and a bad side. I'll just say good and bad for the sake of ease of conversation. It's very personalized, so we're going to talk about some of the generalities of this, what's happening in the market, and then whether you and then how you can know if you're on the good side of this solution or if it's on the bad side.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
How do you want to kick this one off?
So one of the things that I've been noticing is that since 2022, a lot of my clients have, expressed or, have mentioned that, their debt has accumulated a little bit more than, they'd like to. Now, when I pull that back and see it from a bigger spectrum, it's not just our clients. It's like a lot of people are going through it, and just in conversations with family, friends, like everybody feels a pinch in their pocket, and it's been going on for a few years now that you're honestly seeing it. But more than ever now, I see people actually being more honest and upfront about it, and I've really seen the opportunity for people to be able to, be smart with their property and be smart with the equity that they have, and a lot of them have either turned to using their equity to convert their garage, or simply to wipe out a lot of the debt that they're carrying. In a specific scenario, we have a client that's going to be leaving the military here in August, and he's actually going to be converting his garage. So he tapped into his equity. He took out about, I want to say, $100,000 to get started with the conversion of the garage, and that's going to be one of his exit routes for once he's out of the military. He's going to get that converted, and then from there move on to somewhere up in Northern California to be able to then purchase his forever home. But doing so, he's making sure that he's leaving himself well set up here to be able to, if anything happens, he has his rental property and certain things in place to be able to, make up for that income that he's losing from being active. So I think right now is a very, very good opportunity to really assess your financial house and see what you're able to do and what you're able to, better, if anything.
So one of the things I know that they reference here is talking about, why a HELOC for debt consolidation makes sense. And now the core issue here is that there's debt to consolidate to begin with. And if you are in a situation where maybe you've been having to use your credit cards in order to just make ends meet, that is maybe a longer problem that's going to continue ongoing than just solving the issue once. Because if it's a fact of, the income being less than what it takes to have a sustainable life, then that income either needs to increase at the job you have or get a second job, or both people in the home have to work, or some version of all of that. But here's where maybe there's some change that can happen. If you're just having spending behavior problems and your income is satisfactory, if you could get your spending under control, then that may be where the HELOC for debt consolidation makes sense. And where I've seen this work and where I've seen this fail is people use the HELOC to pay off debt because they had a situation that they needed to pay that was large, like a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 fix in their life one time. That is easy for someone to use the house to use a HELOC to pay off because their behavior didn't cause it, right? A major medical bill, for example, is one of the ones I'm referring from my old days. The other part is a little harder to do, which is changing financial behavior. Spending at department stores, buying stuff that you can't afford, or buying stuff that you don't really need to replace. You already have a 72-inch TV and you're like, I need an 80-inch TV. Oh, I don't know. Do you? That's your choice. You can make that choice. But if you can't afford it, hang on to that 72-inch TV. I've seen both sides of this. I've done a HELOC for people before to get themselves out of financial trouble, but their behavior didn't change.
I like that.
And the second that they paid off all those credit cards, it looked good for like a month or two on their credit score, their credit report, and then boom, here comes the spending again because the behavior was never addressed. So I think with interest rates being the way they are in the environment we're in today, if you need to do a HELOC in order to pay off something that happened that your credit cards were covering because it was a single time event, go for it. If you're having a behavior problem, we need to have a separate conversation together.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point, and I think that's very important to highlight the fact that, your behaviors and your relationship with money is going to really dictate, the responsibility you have over it. One of the things I have noticed is that, it's very easy to get into debt. It's very easy to get approved for that credit card in the mail. It's very easy to accept that. But I really feel that if you don't change the behavior and the relationship with money, your habits won't change. Therefore, it's only a matter of time before you fall into that same pattern. And that's what I wanted to highlight. If you notice yourself being in that same pattern where you find yourself, at the end of the month, maxed out, maybe that's a sign that you don't need a, make more money. Maybe you just need to be smarter with your money. And I know people from different wide ranges of incomes that are very good with their money, some that are not very good with their money. And me, I've learned, the hard way as well of, having to manage your money the right way. So I think the behavior is more important than learning how to make money, because that's going to dictate how much of the money you make you actually get to keep.
Yeah, in the most simplest terms possible, you just need to figure out a way to spend less every month than you're making. And I know that right now that is inverted for some people because of where they live, how they live, and the certain circumstances and conditions that surround themselves on their budget every month. But even then, if you don't have a budget, start with the budget. If you aren't tracking your finances, start tracking your finances. The HELOC can come to your aid if you own a house and you have enough equity, if there's enough clearance to take that HELOC without negatively putting yourself in a more negative situation when it comes to your overall debt. So it needs to offer you a solution of ease on some other part of the transaction. You can't just go do the HELOC because you are bailing yourself out without a subsequent plan beyond that. So if you are in a position where your credit cards are way higher than the HELOC amount right now, as far as the HELOC rate is, take a look at that. Take a look at that and then pay your cards off and then maybe close those cards. On other shows, we've talked about leaving cards open because it helps with credit history over time, keep your score higher. But if you're having a problem with spending, sometimes the best thing to do is just put that credit card through the shredder. And if you do the HELOC in order to pay off those cards and they're a much higher interest rate than the HELOC is, then maybe you just need to go without having the credit card for a little bit, ease up, bring your spending back underneath what your income is, and then reset what your life needs to look like from a budget perspective.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely agree with that. And some of the ways that I feel the HELOC can be utilized as well is to invest on your current property. There's different additions that you can utilize it for, like converting your garage, adding a different unit. There's different ways to skin the cat, but that ultimately leads down the line to being able to reap a little bit more income, be able to get a little bit more cash to be able to sustain yourself for the next coming months. But I think it really comes down to what you said, your behavior. If your behavior is not aligned with your goals, then you're definitely not going to be there. You're going to find yourself in the same spot over and over again. One thing that I would suggest for every millennial that's on their phone all the time, like I am, a really good tool that you could utilize, and it's very simple to read and use, is the Rocket Money app. You literally download that, you connect your bank to it, and it's going to tell you exactly where all your money is going. Newsflash, you're going to be very, very, very surprised when you see how much money is going to certain areas. And then when you see the whole amount of where everything gets dispersed, you're going to have a moment of, how did I spend so much money on this one thing? And that in itself is going to start prompting you to say, okay, well, now I'm aware of that. Now I know where that money is going, how it's being spent. Now I can make changes. Now I can make adjustments. But being aware and letting that payment reoccurrently, just be there, you're going to start feeling some sort of way when money's just being thrown away.
Yeah, and I think that on the do not do the HELOC side of this conversation is do not do the HELOC if you're unwilling or unable to change the behavior pattern.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Definitely don't do that. And if you're unwilling to set a budget, if you have no budget and you need a budget and you're unwilling to make one, don't do it. There's this like saying in creator space, I don't want people to know I made that. It's like same thing in the loan space. There's no sense in us helping you do that if it's only going to just reset the same problem cycle for you. So don't attach our name to that. Not because we can't help you with the loan, but look, we want what's best for you beyond the loan closing. And that's why, this is our 20th anniversary this year. And we've kind of been around for that long for a reason. And it's not just because we're turning and burning stuff, but we've seen these kinds of situations time and time again. And the HELOC does not make sense if you have too little equity in your house. You're unable to make the payment on the home equity line of credit when it's executed, if it was to be approved, or if you're unwilling to change the behavior pattern. Yeah. I say address the root issue and then go on from there.
One of the things that that comes to mind is I heard Dave Ramsey when he was talking about his upbringing, how he got to where he is at. He mentioned one thing that stuck with me. He's like, every time I try to outspend my stupid. And he's like, it never worked out. And when he said that, I'm like, you know what? That's so true. Everybody thinks you could just go and make more money and it's going to make all the problems go away. But on the contrary, your problems just get even bigger because you feel like you have more resources, when in reality, it's not a money problem. It's an organization and discipline.
Yep. And whether you have, $100,000 or $1 million or $10 million, money's going to reveal more of who you are and reveal more of your habits as well. I was listening to another unrelated show last week, and they were making this exact point. So and it was a former professional athlete who had actually turned into a business person and then was a financial planner. And at every level, he was basically saying is like, look, your level of income and your level of wealth exposes what you are really doing 100%. Under the surface. Yeah. because whether you have 100,000, $1 million, or $10 million, his whole point was like whatever's on the inside is going to reveal itself at the level at which it can be afforded. And I'm like, whoa!
It doesn't.
All right,
Money doesn't change.
I know this,
Yeah,
but the way he put it, I was like, all right, mic drop moment. You know,
it makes perfect sense. It doesn't change. It just makes you more of who you already
it reveals
are.
it. Yeah,
that's so good.